Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's the radioactive pop with Danny Limelight, United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance blog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Bobby.
Welcome.
Do you know who I am?
Who the hell are you?
Who are those guys?
And then there's the other guys.
We're the other guys. We're the guys nobody ever bets on.
Just what is it that you want to do?
We want to get loaded, and we want to have a good time.
Okay, let's party.
Let me talk to you.
I'm building an alliance.
Will you join us?
It's showtime.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
You're not here, you missing out, because this show...
Ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome.
All right, listen up.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
Now here's the other Alliance guys, Tim, Jeremy, and Dave.
Good afternoon, one and all. It is I, Championship Wrestling from Jeremy, back at it again with my pal Dave Scooby, here to talk some War Chamber and BloodSport, as well as United Wrestling Network.
Yeah.
How you doing today, Dave?
Doing well. We had some unfortunate stuff happen. If you haven't heard about the Francis Key Bridge here in Baltimore, I've been dealing with that. And luckily, no one I knew, or myself included, were not involved in any of the happenings that took place. But I'm just hoping everything works out and they find out what the problem was and why it happened. But besides that, and the weather, I mean, I've been going back and forth between here and Philly. It's about a 2-hour drive. So about every other day, we're getting set up for some WrestleMania stuff up there in our properties. They're right by the stadium. So looking forward to WrestleMania weekend, even though I'm not really a WWE fan. There's tons of wrestling. And we'll talk about some of that's coming up in Philly for WrestleMania weekend.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I must say, if the opportunity ever arose to go to WrestleMania, I would probably enjoy the week leading up to more than I would sitting there for 2 days for 6+ hours in a seat. I would much rather take part in the wrestling that is taking part outside of the WWE. I would much rather go and invest my money and time in seeing that. Not that I'm not a WWE guy or a WWE guy. I love wrestling.
Yeah.
But if the opportunity arose, I would take the money being spent for the WrestleMania tickets and the merch and all that. I would invest it in the smaller promotions that showed up for WrestleMania week, not WrestleMania itself. Let's see. We've got Media Mike is in the chat. How are you doing today, sir?
What's up?
And we've got Willie Bowen with the Tyrus joke of the day. Tyrus will be starring in a movie called Suburbia. He'll be playing the septic tank in the film.
Wow.
Oh, wow, Willie. And we got Matthew Underwood is here. Good afternoon, fellas. Thank you for joining us. I believe Matthew Underwood was asking for me in the UWN chat. I came in. If you say my name, I appear because I believe in Joe Hendry. But I showed up in there, but I never got to see what you were wanting, Matthew. So if you want to throw that in the chat, go for it. And then Skeletor is here. Hello, Skeletor. Thank you for joining us. And let's see. Let's go ahead and we will just jump right into it. I got a little video clip thingy. It's not exactly MLW related, but it is MLW. It's not exactly War Chamber related, I should say, but it is MLW related. So I'm going to play this real quick. We are MLW. The ultimate stage where fighting styles compete for greatness and gold.
where styles make fights. This is Major League Wrestling.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Looking forward to Major League Wrestling this Friday in the Tampa, St. Petersburg area. It's a war chamber, and basically it's war games. It's it's two rings combined, and I mean it's just I saw War Chamber last year in Philly, and it's insane. And I mean they have all these different matches, different types of matches, tag team, 3-person, 4-person, singles matches, and they do it like they do all of their pay-per-views. They'll have tapings before and after, but this time, I mean, it roughly goes about 2 hours. So for the War Chamber pay-per-view itself, Matt Riddle is going to return. He's going to defend the New Japan Pro Wrestling World TV title against Koji Fujita. And this is just a match that I love, that they're involving all the different companies, that they're doing the styles make fights. And also Matt Riddle is back, but he's not just strictly with MLW. So you can see this match happen, and then it may translate over to either in Japan in New Japan Pro Wrestling, or New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong, which is over in California in the Los Angeles area. So a lot of these matches, along with a lot of the matches that'll be coming up for the BloodSport, they're all different. You have different organizations that are involved, and what happens at these either pay-per-views can carry over to their home promotion. So like Matt Riddle, he's New Japan. So anybody that is basically over here in the United States with New Japan, they're either out on the indies fighting, they may fight with AEW, they may end up being in New Japan Strong. But I like how the stories and the storylines bounce between the companies, that they're actually willing to work with each other.
Yeah.
So Matt Riddle will be pulling double duty. He'll be on the actual pay-per-view itself, and he'll also be going against Timothy Thatcher in the tapings. So I'm assuming he'll have his tapings, that he'll be in the later tapings, that he'll be after the pay-per-view, so he's able to put on a worthwhile match to kick things off. And I'm not sure if he's going to actually kick things off, but they have that match listed as number 1. So they may switch it, who knows. But I'm looking forward to it because of the way they fight. These guys fight, and it's a realistic fight. It reminds me, I mean, it's what BloodSport is. It's a worked shoot.
Yeah.
That it's real fighting, but it's not, they're not putting, it's not full force. That they could actually injure each other truly, but they make it look so realistic that it has you on the edge of your seat.
Now, Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher had, I want to say it was a cage match during the shutdown in NXT right before Riddle got called up to the main roster.
Yep.
That was one hell of a match. Those two put it all out there.
And that's the thing. There's certain matches that they've said are War Chamber matches, but I'm not sure how they're going to do it, in that they have to actually put the cage up, and then if they're tearing the cage down, I'm assuming, and when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me, but I believe most of the matches before and after will have one of the actual rings not caged. that they may have partial caging up, but I'm not sure. I can't remember how it was done last year, but all I know is that I did enjoy it. And a couple of the other matches they have listed, they have Mads Cruel Kruger. He's there. They don't have anybody that he's going against. They just say he's in action. So I'm looking forward to that. They have an actual War Chamber match with Team MLW, which is Cozy Max and the Second Gear Crew versus Team WTF. And that's Davey Boy Smith Jr., Tom Lawler, Richard Holiday, and Josh Bishop. Now, this is going to be just an all-out brawl. Plus, it being in a cage, this keeps outside interference, hopefully. This keeps people from ruining the match. But this being a 4-person match, it's almost anything goes. So you're keeping people out, but you're also keeping people in the ring. So it's one of these things that I'm looking forward to this, and I'm not really sure where they're going, but Davey Boy Smith and Tom Lawler are the tag champs, so they'll be going after the Second Gear Crew to knock them even further down, because they won the titles a couple months back. And I mean, WTF is building, and Richard Holiday has interfered in matches before, but he really hasn't made a statement yet. So we'll see what he does, and he could be one of the next contenders to go after the MLW championship. There's also a ladies match for the MLW featherweight champion. It's Janai Kai versus Unagi Sayaka, and this is another styles clash, because it's a Yoshi Pro, and they can fight, but they're more of the regular wrestling, not the reality of wrestling. Whereas Janai Kai, mixed martial artist, willing to do anything to keep that belt. Plus, she's part of who is it? Selena's group.
Yeah.
So they're
Porciones Dorado.
Yes, and they're just. I don't see a bad match on this card. And for the actual War Chamber itself, there's only 5 matches, and that's going over a hour 45, maybe 2-hour time limit. So it's looking very good. Alex Kane, along with Mr. Thomas, will be fighting Top Dollar AJ Francis. And that's going to be a battle.
Yeah.
Because you have a guy of size in AJ Francis. And I know Alex Kane can wrestle. I'm just wondering how many suplexes he's able to do, being that he's a suplex assassin. AJ is a big guy.
Yeah.
And not just a tall guy. He's a big guy, 300 plus pounds, at least 6'3". It's a battle. Alex has made his mark as a former champion in MLW. I'm not sure how long AJ's going to be there, as AJ's floating around here and there. But this is a good match, because what AJ is doing is putting in Alex's mind that someone is going to betray him.
Yeah.
And it's somebody from the Boomaye Fight Club. Whether it happens or not, there's always that in the back of your head. You're always thinking, what's going to happen? So if Mr. Thomas makes a wrong move, it may affect something.
Yep.
So it's one of these things that I hope it doesn't happen, but it's mind games, and AJ Francis is very well in doing these mind games. If you've seen on X or Twitter, he's putting out just promos, and he's just sitting there smoking, explaining what he's going to do. So it's all mind games until he actually gets in the ring. But it's one of these things that being in a cage keeps others out, but it keeps you from running away. That if you can't handle what's happening in the cage, you just have to step up and take what's given to you, or you don't survive. So it's one of these things that there's 5 good matches over a 2-hour period, plus they have the tapings, and the tapings will also have some War Chamber matches as well. The Calling, which is Ricky Shane Page, Sammy Callahan, Cannonball, and Talon, another 4-man battle versus The Response. Now, this is Raven's group. Raven, who will actually be quote-unquote wrestling. He may jump in, do a couple moves here or there, but Akira, Jake Christ, and Jimmy Lloyd are going to be there as well.
Yeah.
So it's warfare battle, and I'm loving that they're mixing up all these factions, whether it's a singles match, that MLW is doing the good faction warfare, and this will carry on. They're going to have in Chicago, they're going to have Azteca Lucha coming up.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to that. They're going to be bringing in some more luchadors, and the battle continues between Cesar and Selena. So this is how I enjoy wrestling. You have all your different styles. You have all your different groups. You can pick or choose who you like in whatever group. But it's one of these things that with the Lucha being there, they're also going to have CMLL stars. Star Jr. is going to be battling Virus at the tapings. Plus, like I said, Matt Riddle is going to be doing double duty. Him and Thatcher are battling it again. And both those guys are just good wrestlers. You may not like the, hey, bro. It's who he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've met him, got some stuff signed. He's just one of the most laid back guys. And he's just like, hey, cool. Doesn't judge. I'm hoping, I'm hoping this builds up to something down the line where he ends up going for the championship again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's signed with them, but he's not exclusively signed. So it's one of these things of right now, okay, if you're holding a championship in MLW, he can go after any championship besides the featherweight title. So if he wants to go after the tag titles, he can find a partner. Imagine him and Thatcher teaming up rather than going against each other. They know how each other moves, and they're both tested in the way they wrestle. So yeah. I could see them working against each other or working together if they decide to have them go after a tag title to either build up World Titan Federation even more with a victory over former champions. But this is one of these things. Court Bauer is doing it the right way. He's using former champions to build up current champions, going back to former champions, having them win to build up others before they leave. And this is what I'm liking about the War Chamber and their upcoming pay-per-view that they're going to have in Chicago as well. It's going to be more of the Azteca Lucha. And I see it having maybe 1 or 2 non-Lucha matches. But it's one of these things of they're telling a story. and they're actually putting one of their pay-per-views out there to tell the story between Selena and Cesar. It's one of these things of these guys can do amazing stuff. Let's just let them go in there, wrestle, tell a story, and then move on. But they don't forget these little stories here and there. It flashes back to their time in Lucha Underground.
Yep.
And that was back in California 6, 7, 8 years ago, if not longer. But it's one of these things that they're using it to tell a story and put little Easter eggs in, and you never know what's going to happen until it actually happens. So I mean, we'll see where things go. Last week we talked about I'm trying to think who it was. Rocky Romero.
Yes.
He's now with AEW doing some cross promotion with them and some of the other lucha and the other wrestlers that he has under contract. So he was taken out of the storyline, but who knows? He may pop up down the line in Chicago for this match. It is.
I would love that.
Even if it's just one of these things of him cutting a promo and somebody doing his dirty work for him. But it's one of these things of they can tape stuff before or after and insert it in. So you never really know what's going to happen until it actually happens. And I'm looking forward to the next special that they have on YouTube. But if you are able to check them out on Triller, do so. The War Chamber, if you like war games from the WWE, give this a shot. There's tons of matches. You can go online and find some matches of previous year pay-per-views. Watch them if you like it. Maybe give them a shot on BN or Triller. But that's what War Chamber is for this coming Friday. I believe it starts at 7:00 Eastern time out of Tampa. So I'm planning on sitting back, relaxing, and enjoying the show.
Now, what do you think's going to go on with this little number? Duran's offer to Selena that she can't refuse.
I really have no idea. It's either going to be one of those things of, oh, it's an offer you can't refuse, that it's going to be a battle of factions and either winner takes all, or it's one of these things of loser leaves, but then they show back up under a mask or something. I'm not really sure, but if they're doing an actual Azteca underground type pay-per-view, I don't see either one of them leaving so far. So it's I really don't know. Right. And that's what I like about it. They don't telegraph what's going to happen. Sometimes you can look at it and go, okay, well, we know so-and-so isn't going to get the win. But most of the time, I mean, if 50% of the time you can't figure out what's going to happen, that's a win-win. So it's just one of these things of for me, it's a hurry up and wait. That I can't wait until what happens. I mean, who knows? I may make a little trip to Chicago. Granted, it's a 9-hour drive, but got to get some of my wrestling in and since they haven't been back to Philly in a while, may venture out and see one of their matches or one of their pay-per-views and see what happens. But I mean, when they were in New York for Once Upon a Time, and they made mention of Chicago, man, they were just the crowd was eating out of his hand. And I mean, it's one of these things when in this day and age when you can look forward to upcoming pay-per-views or upcoming matches and not really have a clue what's going to happen, that's a win for that wrestling organization.
Right. Let's see. We got Media Mike chiming in. Just tired of the same shit with MLW again, like years ago, of all the fucking flippy monkey shit. Every fucking match has flips of some fucking sort. It's getting too repetitive. I do like when they make fun of Itchy Burn, though. Itchy Bum. Oh, Itchy Bum, though. And then he says, Cesar's appearances are starting to suck, sorry to say. Last week, his delivery and promos with Selena stunk. It's like a deer caught in the headlights for him trying to act out his lines.
Yeah.
He does have an odd delivery. But he also comes across, his delivery is very reminiscent of telenovela as well, though.
Yeah.
It's all over exaggerated and just kind of chintzy, for lack of a better, I can't think of a better word. It's just very over the top and expressive to where it does look fake.
It is almost over expressive, but that's what back in the day when if you're able to watch any of the old Lucha Underground, that's how it is. And when you take a style that is from Mexico and really big in California, people respond to that. Whereas a lot of people aren't used to either the lucha style of wrestling or the quote unquote storytelling that they do.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm still able to enjoy it, but I have to basically click my brain off and just watch and not really look at it realistically, but just know that it's wrestling and that they're telling a story.
Yeah.
And more or less almost dumb it down for myself.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I get that. Let's see. From there, we're going to go ahead and jump right into our next segment, Fantasy Booking with Dave. And he's going to talk about the upcoming BloodSport, Josh Barnett's BloodSport, and do some fantasy booking with that.
All right. Well, with BloodSport 10, they do have last week. It was announced they have Shanna Baszler. She will be taking on Masha, and they haven't announced yet. There's still just under 2 weeks until they make it. Until things go down in Philly with BloodSport. But there hasn't been another WWE announcement. I'd like to see 1 or 2 possible people announced to go in and do the BloodSport thing. Or, like I said last week, just have Brock show up and just tear the house down. Now, if you're not used to or know what BloodSport is, it is a worked shoot. It is real grappling and wrestling. But the wrestlers know who's going to win and who's taking the loss. It's one of these things of make it as real as you can without making it look bad or hurting your opponent. Now, there's several matches. Nick Nemeth, formerly Dolph Ziggler in the WWE, he's going against Speedball Mike Bailey. Now, if you haven't watched either of these guys, they're both in TNA as well. I'm calling that Nick with the name is going to get the victory, and then they carry it over into TNA if they're smart.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I watch TNA about every other week. I'll catch up on matches that are highlighted or I hear about on Busted Open. But there's just so much wrestling out there. And I mean, maybe it's because I'm getting older. I just have such a short attention span. And I'd rather see highlights than sit through a 2-hour show.
Yeah.
But I'm liking what both of these guys have. And if they're able to put on a good match at BloodSport, shake hands and go, this isn't over, I'll take care of you at whatever the next pay-per-view is for TNA. This is what BloodSport is about. There's several different companies that work together with Game Changer Wrestling. And this is as close to actual grappling as you can get. Plus, it's called BloodSport for a reason. That they're not afraid to get bloody, get down and dirty. You have Akira. He's an MLW. He's going against Matt Mikowski. Now, I didn't find much on Matt. He's been wrestling for about 5 years. But he has some size to him. So
he does.
If you bring this over either into Game Changer Wrestling itself or over to MLW, that's what I'm liking about a lot of the wrestling organizations now, that they're able to bring in somebody for a set of tapings, for a pay-per-view. If things work out, cool, let's sign them, and they get added to our roster. I mean, they did the same thing with, Bad Dude Tito. He got signed, and now he's able to do MLW as well as New Japan Strong, and also he's involved with Championship Wrestling. So ideally, they're able to use BloodSport matches to set up storylines in all these different organizations. Now, one of the other matches is Suzuki versus Royce Isaac.
This is the one that I'm most interested in.
It's one of these things of both of these guys are New Japan strong, or at least able to fight there. So it's one of those things that Royce is a former NWA champion, tag champion. He's already wrestling for New Japan Strong. Suzuki is New Japan. So storyline, they can continue the story with New Japan Strong. So it's one of those things of I'm liking how everything is carrying over.
Yeah.
Or one of these things of they can point at each other, whoever wins, and well, I'll see you next year. I have to go back to Japan now. I'll see you next year. I'll see you in New Japan Strong when my visa gets renewed. Boom, boom, boom. It takes a storyline. You also have I believe he's the booker, and it is Josh Barnett. He's going against Johnny Bloodsport,
Johnny Nitro, Johnny Raw, Johnny TV.
So this is just going to be, this is an actual clash of styles. But Hennigan seems to do whatever's asked of him. he's being used on ROH some, but he's more or less, him and Taya are on ROH and they're at the tapings. And they
Just
may
had
be
a- He just did a funny sit-down interview with RJ City on Hey EW. I watched it today. One of the few things of AEW that I actively watch each week is RJ City's Hey EW. That man is amazing. I love his interviews, and he's just so good.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. This is a flip of the coin. I mean, Josh Barnett really doesn't have anything to prove. And with Johnny using the name Bloodsport, he can basically, if he wins, he can rub it in his face of, I took the namesake of your organization. I'm now the true Bloodsport. Now, the one thing I would love if they did at Bloodsport is each of the winners, whether it be, I'm really not into the intergender, but if they're willing to wrestle, that's cool. But if you have 8 or 10 matches, then have a battle for the Bloodsport belt. And that would be listed as you're basically the champion or you're the king of the mountain. Each of the winners in all of these matches then go into a battle royal. So it's one of those things, or put their names in a hat and you draw 2 people out and they battle for the Bloodsport belt. And then they hold that belt for the next year. It's something I as a quote unquote fantasy booker would like. But I mean, if you've watched any of the old Bloodsports, they put their all in. So maybe having them do a second match may not be best, but it's one of those things that they could have a match down the line to maybe do a battle for the Bloodsport belt. But also Masa Slamovich, she's going against Shanna Baszler. I'm calling Shanna to get some eyes on this. All the tickets, I mean, I've looked, all the tickets are sold. And if you want tickets, you're going to pay outrageous to get in and see this.
Yeah.
Now I'm hoping they add maybe 1 or 2 more people, but it's one of these things. I don't know what WWE has in store. I really don't follow NXT that much. I'm not sure if they could pull somebody from NXT and either be a second or possibly a third entry into the Bloodsport tournament. But it's one of these things of I'm just looking forward to realistic fighting.
Yeah.
That this is one of those things that if you enjoy, I mean, Cesaro, if you enjoy Claudio, his God-given name, how he wrestles, basically catch wrestling, MMA style, Eddie Kingston, you don't have to be a certain height, a certain weight, have blonde hair, blue eyes. It's just, it's a battle. This is a battle sport. Now I see Matthews asking about Moxley. I haven't heard anything about Moxley. I know he's taking some time off, I believe, from AEW. I'm not sure where he's going or if he has some Japanese matches set up for the next, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks. I follow AEW enough to watch some of their stuff, but not everything. But on Moxley, I'm not sure. He's done it the last couple of years. Every once in a while, it's okay to shake things up and pull some people off the card and try somebody new, just so it's not, oh, it's wrestler A again. Oh, he's going to do he's a Japanese wrestler. He's going to blow mist and he's going to win that way. Well, it gets tired year after year after year. So sometimes you just have to shake things up. And I haven't heard much on Moxley doing anything besides AEW and some fights over in Japan.
Yeah, that's about Harry Smith Jr. I'm just naming guys who've been in it before. I totally get that. Yeah.
And
I'd
mean,
like to see Harry Smith in it again.
It's one of these things that Harry Smith is one of those guys that can fight any style, but he has the size and he knows how to wrestle. I mean, if you've gone through dungeon training, you know how to wrestle. So it's one of those things of, I'm like, I'd love to see Davey Boy Smith show up, but if you've watched him in MLW, he's changed his appearance. And when I say appearance, he's wearing blue jeans and boots. He's not in wrestling gear. He's one of the.
He looks like he's ready to be. He looks like he's ready to get into a bar fight, though.
Yep. That it's he's taking the Styles make fights. He's just going out there and beating the hell out of it, and he's not playing the part of Davey Boy Smith Jr. He's just, I'm going to go in and whatever it takes by any means necessary. This is what I'm doing.
St. Laurent.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Matthew's asking about, other than Troop, who would you pick in the NWA? Kratos. He's fought a couple times, but it's one of the, I mean, it's one of these things. I could possibly see either maybe Trevor, being that he's a Harley guy. This is a wrestling match, but I mean, if you look at some of these guys, and back in the day it was, if you go to a bar and you end up getting in a fight and you lose, you're out of the territory. So you have to know how to take care of yourself no matter what, whether it's quote unquote wrestling or catch wrestling or MMA style, whatever. But I'm not really sure.
I'll give you one. Chris Silvio.
Yeah.
He has an MMA background.
Yep. And I mean, like Matthew said, Jax, I mean, yeah, I mean, he has the size, plus he can wrestle. It's one of these things of all these different wrestlers wrestle for a reason. They've either come from MMA, they've been college wrestlers, or they just enjoy fighting. And this was their way of getting paid to fight without actually, quote unquote, getting hurt the real way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at, I mean, some of the guys that have come from football, and then they've made it in wrestling. So it's wrestling is a chance for some people to either step up, or a second chance for them to make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things of, okay, this BloodSport thing, it's real to a certain point. They're not there to injure or damage their opponent, but they're there to make it look as real as possible. And I was also thinking, I had mentioned it last week, what if they did a battle royal? That'd be a good thing. Like I said, go for a battle for the BloodSport belt. But if they did a battle royal and you took some old school wrestlers, I came up with 15 wrestlers that I personally like their style of wrestling. And I would love to see how they would all mesh. Being in a battle royal, if you do one every 2 minutes, you're looking at least a 30-minute. If it goes that way, or you do one every 90 seconds, however, you're looking a good 25 to 30 minutes right there. So you're getting your money's worth. But I mean, first off, I'm thinking, imagine Bruiser Brody and Harley Race kicking things off. That would just be, I mean, these guys wrestle, but they're not quote unquote wrestlers by trade.
Right.
That they're willing to do anything and everything to win a match. Mix in Terry Funk and Roddy Piper. Those guys, by any means necessary. Terry went through several different personas. Terry is the crazy coot. He was also Chainsaw Charlie. But back in the day when he and Dory Jr., his brother, were wrestling, he was more of the quote-unquote finesse wrestler. He changed his style many a times. I mean, if you saw any of his stuff that he did, ECW, the hardcore style, him and Tommy Dreamer beat the hell out of each other. But it's one of those things of by any means necessary. I also mentioned his brother, Dory Funk Jr. They battled a couple times, but mainly they were on the same team. So I could see them teaming up until one of them has to actually toss out one or the other. But the thing is, with BloodSport, it's either by pinfall or submission. So you're either counted out, and it's not, oh, I'm tossing you out. You're counted 1, 2, 3 in the center of the ring. Or you say, I tap, I give. So these are people that made their living by brute wrestling. You look at somebody like Stan Hansen or Terry Bam Bam Gordy. Those are just size guys. Same thing with Dr. Death, Steve Williams. But also, a lot of these guys are former college football players. So they have timing down. They know how to work well with others to make things look realistic. That whenever, I mean, Bam Bam Gordy, he could take a licking, but when he was with the Freebirds, he could battle just as well. That when you put somebody of his size in there, along with all these other wrestlers, imagine him and Bruiser Brody going against each other. That's just meat on meat. It's just one of those things that it's just crazy. That the different styles and sizes of these wrestlers, that if they were all within a 5-year span of each other, that this could have actually happened. Who knows? But you think about it. Iron Sheik, Olympic wrestler, bodybuilder, one of the, not the dirtiest player in the game, but one of the dirtiest player, had loaded boots. Big Van Vader. Leon was willing to do just about anything. If you put him in there and you don't say, okay, you have to do this, this, and this, he gets tagged in, or he comes down the aisle. And the thing is, in Bloodsport, it's just an open mat. There are no ring ropes. So there's no high crossbody smashes. everything is just ground and pound. So you can't do this without Luthez. He's one of the shooters, one of the main shooters that I would put in there, along with William Regal.
Oh, fuck.
Imagine William Regal back when he could actually, when he was wrestling, when he was clean, and when he was not on drugs. He may not have been in the best shape, but the guy can wrestle.
He can stretch you a billion ways from Thursday.
Oh, yeah. And it's just it's insane. I've seen his son Charlie Dempsey wrestle, and it's scary how good his son is. And I'm sure that I mean, wow, if Dempsey could do what his dad does in the ring, if they would allow him to stretch people down in NXT, if somebody's willing to, okay, I'm going to make a name for myself and do something that's unsafe, well, there's your guy. You have to make it through Charlie Dempsey before you make it onto the roster, that he's the gatekeeper. And I mean, that's one of those things that it may be old school in thought, but I think every wrestling organization should have somebody that is the gatekeeper or the tester, that if you want to come in, you have to go through at least a 7 to 10 minute match with so-and-so. And if you can deal with everything they put up, then you have a chance of being signed to that organization.
I really like that.
I got a couple others. Kurt Angle, of course, I mean, Olympic wrestler. He picked up wrestling so quick. He's one of those guys that can stretch you if needed. But I would just love to see, I mean, imagine Kurt Angle going against, I don't know, a Dr. Death Steve Williams.
Oh, God.
While there is a size difference, speed does make up for it.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things that Kurt Angle was just an all-around great wrestler no matter where he wrestled.
Yeah.
And then you also have Ron Simmons.
Oh, get the fuck out of here, bro.
I came up with 15 old school wrestlers. Ron Simmons is one of those guys that he takes no crap from anybody.
Right.
Former football player, can wrestle with the best of them, is willing to do anything to win. I would love to see him. Now that's 14 people. I have Harley Race, Bruiser Brody, Roddy Piper, Terry and Dory Funk, Stan Hansen, Terry Gordy, Dr. Death Steve Williams, Iron Sheik, Big Van Vader, William Regal, Luthez, Kurt Angle, and Ron Simmons. That's 14. The 15th person is my pick, being that he can wrestle and go toe-to-toe with just about anyone. Ming or Haku, King Haku. I've read many a time where this is one of those things of all these wrestlers, if they're asked, who would you not want to get into a real life fight with?
He was always the first name.
9 out of 10 times it was Ming / King Haku.
Yep.
Now it's one of those things of, I know this would never happen, but in my mind, this is the one wrestler that I see could deal with all these different styles of wrestlers, even though size may matter a lot of the time. It doesn't matter all the time. So this is just one of those things that I'm like, if it could happen, Ming would be my pick. I've just always loved what he's done, whether it be when they did the Powers of Pain or the what was it? Colossal Connection
Yeah.
back in the day. Any style of wrestler you put him up against or put him in a ring with, it's just awesome in my eyes.
I always liked Ming, and this is an odd association, but I always liked Ming because he was in the Body Slam movie with Dirk Benedict and Roddy Piper. And I saw that right around the time that I first caught Flash Gordon, and Ming the Merciless was the main villain guy in that. And then I got introduced to Ming the Wrestler, or it was the other way around. I was introduced to Ming the Wrestler, and then in the movie, and then I saw Flash Gordon. But my mind does weird association shit, and Ming was such a bad guy in Body Slam and in wrestling. And then you had Ming the Merciless, who was, for a kid at the time, he was the most dastardly villain I had came across.
Yep.
And I just associated those two, and I've always been a fan of that man. And I love, while they're horrible, and I would not want to be, as a grown adult, I'm like, yeah, you can't do those things, but like plucking a guy's eyeball out with his thumb in a bar, and you know, taking out an entire bar full of legit badasses, but he is the legit badass.
Oh yeah.
You know, it just, you hear those stories, and it's just like, yeah, that's a guy that you don't want to tussle with. But then on the flip side of that, what was it, a couple of weeks back, we got Laughing Ming, because he got introduced to John Tenta, the Shockmaster, making his debut, and he had never seen that before. And so you've got this weird juxtaposition of, this is legit the baddest man in wrestling.
Yep.
And here he is now, and he's 30 years older, and he's just laughing, just genuine belly laughs at one of his buddies who made a really bad first impression on the entire wrestling world.
Yeah. But I mean, fantasy booking, if I could do something like that, I would love to do that, especially with wrestlers of the past. I mean, right now, I mean, I hate to say it, but there's not wrestlers that stand out like they did in the past.
No, I Lance Archer.
Oh yeah.
I'm just thinking of guys that are currently in the business that are still active, that I would still talk shit to, but I would have some apprehension. Lance Archer's one. Jacob Fatu is another one. I would not shit talk that man, just flat out. There's no. I value my life a little more than that. I would shit talk Lance Archer, but at a distance, at a Chihuahua's distance, like a block and a half away.
Yep.
Just being 100%, I am very sure of myself, but that is a big ass man.
Oh yeah.
Claudio is another one that I would be apprehensive to talk shit about too, face to face. Kingston, but then I watched the chest chops, and I'm like, yeah, I'd probably talk a little shit to him. But yeah, maybe Orton, but I think more because I just respect him a lot. That's a guy that has made great strides in changing who he is as a person and as a whole.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I would have talked shit to him. Batista, if he was still active, I would have been apprehensive about him. But that's what, not even 10?
Yeah, I mean it's one of these things of if they could do BloodSport and then at the end of the night have like a battle royal for a belt,
Yeah.
I I I would love that. But it's one of these things that if you've ever watched, I mean, there's some that you can go on and watch matches. I mean, this is the 10th one going, and ironically, Matt Riddle started the Bloodsport. That he started and then he ended up getting signed. So Josh ended up taking over. But each year, there's been some people that have come back. Then I mean, you've had people wrestle there that you'd be like, okay, Allison Kay. It surprised me, but she's wrestled there, and it's not always big and tough, but some of these wrestlers are just, I mean, it's definitely not like a Rolando, and I mean, granted, Chris Silvio doesn't have the size, but he knows what's going on. He's a wrestler. So it's one of these things of, I mean, there's so many wrestlers that could go into either the current Bloodsport or my fantasy league, and like Matthew Underwood, Hawk and Animal. Yeah, I could see them going in, but that's one of those things of they're a tag team and you don't really mess with perfection.
Right.
It's if there was ever a time when they had to wrestle and do a battle between them, I wouldn't want to be the person in between them. So it's one of these things of Hawk and Animal. Yeah, I could see either of them going in and doing it, but because they're a tag team, I wouldn't want to see them have to end up facing each other. And I mean, I mean, you can look and see and go, okay, well, Steve Blackman.
Oh, shit.
Great wrestler. He could just ground and pound and you'd be out. But I mean, Ken Shamrock, he's done all this stuff. There's so many different styles of wrestlers that could do this. But I went with the bigger names, at least to me. I'm an older wrestling fan. And like I said, out of these 15, probably 11 or 12 of them are people that I've just grown in love with the style of wrestling that they do. They'll wrestle when push comes to shove. They'll do whatever it takes to win. And that's the kind of wrestler I like. I mean, you can tell Trevor learned under the Harley Race tree because of his style. He's no nonsense. He's willing to fight. Him and Mike Knox make a perfect tag team in my eyes because they complement each other. But it's one of these things that you look at them and go, okay, well, Trevor doesn't look like a quote unquote wrestler these days look like. It doesn't matter. If you can get the job done, get the job done.
Right.
So, I mean, there's several different wrestlers that I would like to see highlighted at Bloodsport. And who knows? I mean, if Troop could get in there and make a name for himself, hey, more power to you. But I mean, like you said, Chris Silvio, I mean, a match between him and Royce Isaac, that'd be great in my eyes.
Yeah, I can see that being very, very good.
And it's one of these things of it's not always about size. It's size helps, but the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's my take on the Bloodsport stuff. And we'll see what happens. I'm actually looking forward to watching that.
I am too. I am too. We're going to shift now over to some United Wrestling Network talk. And we got the show open this week with David Marquez holding the United Wrestling Network Heritage title that he says was returned to him by BHK Kevin Martinson, who is still out with an injury. Dave wanted to put it on hiatus, but Martinson said no. Dave says that Martinson feels it's not fair, and is then interrupted by Zicky Dice. Zicky says he knows the perfect person to hold a heritage title. Davis says he's confused, and Zicky clarifies that he is the person to hold the title and takes the title away from David. Davis said he already has one, and Zicky dares him to do something and take it back, and that he does what he wants. We then jump to a match with Fidel Bravo teaming with AJ Mana versus the Krusty Crew, made up of Dom Kubrick and Lucas Riley. This was an interesting match. Mana, we've seen a couple of times in past tapings. Quite impressive, but still kind of green. So getting paired up with Fidel Bravo, who is a veteran in UWN, was a very good move. The Krusty Crew, I should have looked to see how long they've been together, but I didn't. But they were impressive. Their finishing move is called the Dutchman's Curse, and it is a monkey flip out of the corner into a power bomb, a sit out power bomb. I would like to see more elevation on the monkey flip into the power bomb. Dom Kubrick almost didn't catch. I believe it was AJ Mana that took it for the finish. The Krusty Crew ended up getting the win. Like I said, I want to see more elevation on that monkey flip. It's a hell of a finisher. I like it. It's a great tag team finisher, but we need more elevation on that. He barely caught him on that. It was close. We then go to a backstage segment with Peter Avalon and Danny Limelight. Peter is telling Danny the match that they had reinvigorated him, and Danny says Peter brought the fight out in him. Jordan Oasis walks up and asks where his shot is, since so many new guys are getting chances, and he's a new guy. Peter tells Jordan it took him 15 years to get a title shot. A nice try, kid, and then walks off. Danny asks if he has a contract in that backpack that says he can just come ask for championships. Jordan questions Danny being a fighting champion if he won't give him a shot, and then calls Danny a poser. We know better than anybody that Danny Limelight is definitely a fighting champion. Definitely not a poser in this situation. But he's not just going to fight some schmuck just because he walks up running his mouth. But Oasis is a big guy. Danny says tonight he'll take on Oasis for the title. Just as he's saying that, Johnny LaQuasto comes up and says that that cannot happen. It would just upset too many people. But if Jordan can beat Danny tonight in a singles competition without the belt on the line, he'll get a title shot down the road. We then go to Peter Avalon and Papo Esco backstage. Peter's on the phone with somebody talking about the interaction he just had with Jordan Oasis. When Papo walks up, Papo asks if Peter has seen Slice Boogie, and it shows him the Slice Boogie shirt. And Peter says not since Slice tried to jump the line to get his shot before Peter could at Danny Limelight, and calls him a fool. And Papo lets him know real quick to watch how he talks about Slice, because they're still brothers. We then go to a match between Alex Gracia and J-Rod. There were plenty of J-Rod signs in the crowd within reach, so J-Rod could grab one and rip it up. J-Rod is still quite awkward in the ring. Putting her in matches with talent like Gracia will help her, hopefully. Savannah Stone had a mid-match video package that was sponsored by Buckets for Rent, by the way. Throughout the match, J-Rock continued to not take Gracia seriously and ended up paying the price as she had Gracia up on her shoulders, showing off her strength. Gracia slid down J-Rod's back and got a roll-up and the 3 count. Shocked everybody. And like I said, J-Rod's it was a very awkward match. She's got something. She needs to find it where she placed it. But like I said, putting her in matches with talent like Gracia who have been in the ring, especially United Wrestling Ring, know what's going on and everything, help kind of guide her through, slow her down a little bit. I think that's a big part of her problem. She's thinking about the steps she's working on, the move that's going on, and the next 2 that are going to be coming after it all at the same time, and she's just kind of putting a little rush on herself. We then got a match between the Irish Juggernaut Mikey O'Shea versus highly recommended Cameron Gates. Most recently, we saw Gates face off against EJ Sparks in a losing effort. I love watching Mikey work. A man that size should not move as well or so many different ways as he can.
Yeah.
It truly is an element of surprise. See what I did there?
Yep.
While O'Shea maintained control for most of the match, Gates was able to get in some offense towards the end. This really only achieved in upsetting the Juggernaut as Mikey hit a thunderous powerbomb to set up the gunslinger for the 3. This match was not long, but it was my match of the week. I love getting to see Mikey wrestle, and especially back in a UWN ring. Like I said, there's no reason a man that size should be as agile as he is.
No.
And
Nope.
I think he would put some Olympic competitors to shame with his agility compared to theirs. Just a great match, not long. I believe they have it on the Memphis Wrestling YouTube page as a single match. And I think it's like with entrances and everything, like 5 minutes total. But just a banger of a match. We then go to a backstage segment with Danny and Papo. Danny's getting ready for his match with Jordan Oasis when Papo says that he has his eye out for Tito and for Slice, and that Danny doesn't have anything to worry about but doing what they do best, and that's robbing the house. Danny asks if Papo is sure he has nothing to worry about, and Papo says he promises. He's got him. We then jump to Jack Farmer at the United Wrestling news desk. Jack talks about the growing feud between main event Evan Daniels and the Irish Juggernaut Mikey O'Shea and goes to a video package of Evan Daniels. Daniels says that he's laser focused on Mikey, and since Mikey decided to spit in Evan's face, Evan is going to put Mikey in his place. I see what he did there. He could be the next two Rhymes or Bustapak or a Fugazi 57 sauce, but he should really keep his day job as a wrestler because rhyming isn't. No, that was weak sauce for him. But he got his point across at least.
Yeah.
Jack then brings up Flex McCallion, one half of Turn Him Down If You Got Him Plugged in Your Ears. Beef Candy! God, I love saying that. And how he pulled another fast one last week on Guy Cole with an illegally loaded glove. This allowed Jason Levels to get his first win in the UWN. We then get a video package from Flex about what he's been up to. Flex says he knows everyone has seen him racking up the W's, and he's having a lot of fun introducing people to the Tenderizer. And he holds up his boxing gloved hand. He's going to leave one word branded on everyone's brains. Turn him down again. Beef! No candy, though. Jack then talks about the new UWN TV champion, Zicky Dice. He asks if we've really seen a new side of Zicky Dice and tosses it to a video package of Zicky. Zicky says things are starting to shape up for him, and it's because he's finally taken control of his destiny, and asks if we're down with OZD. Now, I tried to piece together that because I was down with OPP back in the day, as Naughty by Nature would ask, and that was other people's property or a few other things.
Yep.
But I couldn't, for the life, other Zicky Dice. I don't know that I'm down with the other Zicky Dice. I don't think that the world can handle more than one Zicky Dice. But I mean, I guess I'm down. I like Zicky Dice, which, by the way, posted. I think it was Matthew that posted in the Discord that Zicky's branched out his merchandise a little bit. He now has pre-rolled cones to fill with whatever accoutrement you may want to fill them with. I'd fill mine with marijuana, just saying. But I think I'm going to pick me up some. We then go to the main event of the show, which was the Global Nomad. That's a hell of a name. It explains the backpack. Jordan Oasis versus the Radioactive Poppy, the UWN World Heavyweight Champion, my champion and yours, Dave.
Yep.
Danny fucking Limelight. As the commentary team stated, this is a good match for Danny in preparation for his upcoming matches against the bigger guys and Bad Dude Tito and Slice Boogie. Oasis tried to break Danny in half at one point as he powerbombed Danny from the apron onto the barricade railing. I squeaked a little bit when I saw that. I definitely grabbed my back. I felt Danny's pain figuratively. Thankfully, it was just figuratively, because I would not want to feel that physically. If that man got up and wrestled the next day, definitely should be holding the United Wrestling Heavyweight Championship for another 400 plus days. I'm just saying.
Yep.
Danny was barely able to make it back into the ring before the 10 count. And I mean, like, the t was coming out of the ref's mouth as Danny was getting back in the ring. Oasis does a good job of keeping Danny on offense for most of the match until Danny was able to hit a Spanish fly. And then followed from the corner, followed a flying knee from the top rope. Danny was able to get a 2 count from that sequence, and then combined with the previous punishment, was starting to show some wear and tear. Danny went for a sleeper, but Oasis rammed him into the corner, breaking the hold. He then sets Danny on the top turnbuckle and crucifix slammed him essentially to the mat, but is only able to get a 2 for that. Oasis went for the lariat, but Danny ducked and is able to get the Maurice Anyando locked in. And just as it looked like Jordan was about to tap, Jack Banning charged the ring with his hood up from the crowd and attacked Danny, causing the ref to call for the bell. I look for this to further Jack and Danny's story while also weaving Oasis into the story further into the main event scene, and hopefully possibly getting his revenge against Jack for costing him the match. Now, the match was called a no contest. It was not, that did not end in the DQ. But what was interesting was Papo eventually made his way out to the ring. Like, he said that he had his eyes out for Tito and them, but he wasn't out there, and that left Danny questioning a lot. He didn't accept Papo's hand up or anything like that. Skidded out of the ring, was trying to go up the ramp and got tripped up and landed on his ass on the ramp and back scooted, a lot of good cinema there. A lot of good storytelling went on in the last few seconds of that match.
Mm-hmm.
The Championship Wrestling then did a rebroadcast of the show, but they removed the Gracia versus J-Rod match and the O'Shea versus Gates match. And the Gracia versus J-Rod match was replaced with Benny Massaro versus Jake Painter. I talked with J-Cal offline on our Discord, and he said that they're just stretching out content, just to make content last a little bit longer. They're not taping again until April, so this was I believe it was the commentary team said that these were Derby City matches, and I think he's just weaving them in. But it was a good match to introduce Painter to the UWN audience and to reintroduce Massaro, who hasn't been a mainstay on UWN product. He has been popping up. He had been popping up here and there towards the end of the last tapings that they had at the end of last year. But his exposure there had been minimized quite a bit. But it was nice to see him come back. He's a good veteran in the ring. He ended up hitting the snoring elbow to get the win over Painter. And then in the Bryce Saturn, we had Bryce Saturn versus Damian Desire was the match that replaced O'Shea versus Gates. Saturn formerly teamed up with Evan Daniels and R3. Since R3's retirement, Saturn and Daniels have decided to go out on their own in singles competition. Desire's very reminiscent of an Adrian Adonis, very flamboyant with his antics and everything. Good solid match from these two. Again, putting Desire in there with Saturn, who is a veteran of Championship Wrestling from Arizona, was a good way to introduce Desire to the crowd by putting him in the ring against somebody that they already know. A solid match from these two. At the end of the day, Saturn is victorious as he hits the Fatality Death Valley Driver, which was R3's move. And he picked up the 3 on that. Great shows from Marquez and crew again this week. Like I said, the rebroadcast from what I'm understanding, the Derby City broadcast will have a couple of matches from the original broadcast of Championship Wrestling, and then they'll weave in a couple of matches that they had taped for that. So look for that. Memphis is getting there. We've got K Toomer now is the new champion.
Finally,
I still think that they pulled the trigger too late on that.
Yeah.
The pop that they could have had whenever he initially went after the title, you could hear the room deflate when he didn't pick it up. So I think that they may have missed the boat on that. But it's wrestling. There's always ways to get that desire back and the people pulled back in. Mm-hmm. And if anybody can do it, Memphis can. It may take them a little bit, but they'll get there. As I say every week, if you're not watching the UWN and all of its affiliated products, ain't no toe fungal going to help that fungus you got going on down there. I'm just saying.
Yep. Well, speaking of tapings, it was announced Crockett Cup 2024 is going to be in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, Forney, Texas.
I saw that.
But it's only one night, whereas in the past, Crockett Cup has been 2 nights.
Yeah.
So EC3 will be facing Sam Adonis, who was in the NWA previously with who was it? Stanley. They were the Rude
Jamie
dudes.
Stanley.
Jamie Stanley.
The Rude dudes. Oh, El Rudo. I'm glad to see him coming back.
El Rudo. But I mean, if you haven't seen what Sam Adonis does, he's a very good wrestler. He's a wrestler. He wrestles down in Mexico a lot.
Yep.
He was wasted, in my opinion, being in a tag team. That he's a very good wrestler. He's a good antagonist. Him versus EC3 is good, but I'm wondering why. I know he is now living down in Texas, so he's closer to Mexico because he goes down there a lot. But it's one of these things of, if he's going to be going against EC3, what's that say about the NWA? Do we not have wrestlers that can go up against him?
Bingo.
Who knows? I mean, I'm not sure, but I mean that's coming up in roughly just over 6 weeks. It's May 18th. Now there's also tapings coming up in Tampa in just over 2 weeks. So I'm thinking if they do the Crockett Cup, they have some qualifying matches at the tapings, and you have some of your teams like the Now and the Heat Seekers and some of those teams fill in while you build up a couple other teams and maybe have your top 8 at the actual Crockett Cup, being that it's only one night. If you have 8 teams, that's 7 matches right there. So it's one of these things of just do it right. Now with the tapings, if you know where to look, you can find spoilers. But on social media, NWA and others that like to put out spoilers, they really haven't. That you have to know where to look and where to go to find what happened at these matches. That there are people that do videotape them while they're there and put them out there. But if you're on social media and you just block certain keywords, you can get away with not knowing. But I like knowing, so it's one of these things that in the next couple of weeks, if you are going to watch Power, you are going to see some changes from the Hard Times. That was back in Dothan, Alabama.
Yep.
But I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm assuming it being in the Dallas Fort Worth area that DKM is going to go. So hopefully we'll get some on-hand reports, or at least some behind-the-scenes reports on the Discord of what's going on at Crockett Cup. And I believe Jay may be heading there. If I could, I would, but I will have to do some business stuff that weekend, so I won't be able to make the trip to go see it. But there's also word that 76 may be taking place up near, well, where 76 is prominent, and that's 1776. That word is through the grapevine, NWA 76 will be taking place at the old ECW arena. This isn't confirmed, but the people I've talked to didn't say yes, but they didn't say no. They just said, you'll find out in a couple weeks. We'll make an announcement. Don't worry. So I don't know if If it is, I may head up there, being that it's in reasonable distance. But it's just, to me, the NWA, I still like them, but they've moved down the ladder of organizations I like just because of the way they've switched things up. I'm missing the pay-per-views. I'm missing living in the moment and having to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks to see things that I know have already taken place.
I get that completely.
But we will see.
Let's... Right, on that note, we are going to wrap it up for today. Don't forget that to join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for the Alliance Guys podcast with J Cal, DKM, and Jaden. And every Tuesday at 5 p.m., 2 p.m. Pacific for the pre-party, the after-party, the during party, the party. The hour of power, too sweet to be sour with J Cal.
Yep.
And you can follow us over on Twitter at TOAG Livestream. That's TOAG for the other Alliance Guys. See how clever Tim was there? Live stream. Dave, where can they find you on the socials?
On X and Instagram at Dave Scooby, like the dog. And on TikTok at Dave Scooby, followed by the number 1.
You can find me over on Twitter at HJWOTS and on Threads and Blue Sky, or on Threads at Championship Wrestling Jeremy, and on Blue Sky I'm Alliance Jeremy, I think it is. I've been saying Championship Wrestling Jeremy, and that was all wrong. But and then most important, the Alliance Wrestling on all the social media platforms and YouTube at the Alliance blog. Just that simple. We thank each and every one of you for tuning in again with us this week. Now next week, be watching the pre-party with J Cal. He will have an announcement as to what we're going to do next week. Next week, I will be recovering from a dental visit, so I will not be able to make the show next week because I'm getting these fixed. These are going bye-bye, and I'm getting these fake thingies that they call dentures, so that way I have a mouthful of teeth again. And I don't look like some typical fucking wrestling mark in his mother's basement, all toothless and talking shit about wrestlers. Because I'm not in my mother's basement. I'm in my own bedroom, in my own apartment. But I'm still fucking toothless wrestling mark. So there we go. But Dave, I thank you for sitting down with me and joining me again this week, sir.
No problem.
Great week. Avoid bridges.
Yeah, definitely. I just, man, my
until
phone
next
blew up,
time,
and I'm like, you don't know how many friends you have until something bad happens in your area, and they're like, "Hey, are you okay?" This and this, and I'm like, "Yeah, I heard something happened. I was in bed at 1:35 in the morning, but yeah."
I had no idea what time it happened. I just knew it happened in Baltimore, and I got people in Baltimore, and you're the people, so I had to check in for sure. But that'll do it for us this week. We thank you all for joining, and until next time, we will see you at the matches.